What up, Challenge fans? We are Final Alliance Podcast. We just finished watching episodes 1 and 2, the premiere episodes of the Challenge World Championship on Paramount Plus. Allegedly, it's supposed to be exclusively on Paramount Plus, but I did notice today they did air episode 1 on MTV. So that was a little interesting to me, considering during Challenge USA, and they talked about the Global Championship, that it would be exclusively on Paramount Plus, except for apparently episode 1 being on MTV. I'll let that one slide. If you have watched our podcast before, thank you for coming back. Appreciate it. I'm Sarah. As you notice, I am by myself tonight. Jay could not make it this evening. He will be back next week. It's just me tonight. So let's break it down, shall we? Episode starts in Cape Town, South Africa. We have our MVPs, they're calling them, meaning not everybody's a winner, from Challenge USA, Challenge UK, Challenge Australia, and Challenge Argentina. Now, these were all on Paramount Plus, except for Argentina. I think maybe they're going to start putting that on Paramount Plus, but it was not on Paramount Plus as of now. So I did watch those. I'm sure many of you at home have watched all 4. So we have those people that are familiar to us, and they're doing the introductions with their hosts in the stadium with TJ. And then, of course, the helicopter flies over, and in come the challenge greats, the people that we know and love, the Bananas, the Wesses, the Jordans and Tories, Ambers, Kellyanns, all our peeps that we love. And I don't know about you, but that got me really excited. While I've grown to like many of these people from these other shows, for example, really big fan of Ben and Danny. I mean, heck, even Sarah, I have a little bit of respect for from last season on Challenge USA. Also really, really have love for Kiki. I'll talk about her more later, and Kaz, all kinds of people. But seeing the challenge greats, I mean, that's what we're all here for, right? They come in, and this is giving me kind of fresh meat vibes, because your MVPs, your people from the different countries, now have to do a qualifier, while the challenge greats get to watch. And you know that means something. What's that going to mean later on? Probably partners, but at this point, it's up in the air. TJ tells us that it's $500,000 cash prize. We know it's a 12-episode season. Today aired episodes 1 and 2. I don't know if I told you the titles or not. Episode 1 was titled Run the World, and episode 2, When Worlds Collide. One thing that I do want to start off with, because I love to talk about the music, because the challenge did occur, originally on MTV, music television. I love to talk about the music. There is music on this, which is better than I can say from Challenge USA, but it's not good. It's not giving me the MTV vibes. It's not giving me the All-Stars vibes. I'm not down for the music so far. Hopefully they can turn it around, but so far it doesn't make my ears very happy. It's not like last season where we had the, Walking on Sunshine, The Sign, old school songs that we enjoy, Footloose. No, it's not giving us that. It's giving us, things that make my brain unhappy. In the qualifier, there are 5 checkpoints. So our MVPs have to go through these checkpoints. It's a race. TJ tells us that it's important to place well, and the bottom 2 teams, or 2 people of each gender, will go into an elimination. So we're starting right away. It's getting real. Checkpoint 1 is called Eat Your Heart Out, which surprised the heck out of me that they started with an eating challenge, because from what I remember from USA, there wasn't really any eating except for in the final when they had to eat, what was it, like onions and garlic with lemon juice. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but I don't think in UK or Australia they had eating challenges either, at least not from what I remember of the final. but it was some sort of a vegan shake. All kinds of throwing up. So that's interesting to see in the first maybe 5 minutes of a show, just the violent throwing up. Not a lot of people are a huge fan of the throwing up. Sometimes I find it amusing. I got to give Ben the MVP of the throwing up. It was a full-on South Park spray puke. That was magic, dude. Good for you. He also was the first one to finish. So I guess that South Park puke really worked out for him. And I guess that shake was vegan, so that's great that it was vegan so that everybody could ingest it the best that they could. Ben does tell us that he's from Challenge USA. He tells us that he was medically DQ'd before the final last season, as we all remember, because he had shoulder injury. So he had surgery on that, and he also had surgery on his knee. So he's like, let's test him out, see what they can do. The second step is second checkpoint is it's called Hammer at Home. And there is a big tire that I think was the weight of the contestant. And they had just a big rubber mallet hammer, and they had to push it as far as they could, or the 10 yards, 5 yards-ish past a line. This looked incredibly difficult. And people were going as hard as they could with the best momentum and form that possible, and the tire would move maybe an inch. So this was definitely a endurance, strength, and obviously you just had to stick with it. Ben stays in the lead with this as well. Then we get to our third checkpoint, which is called On a Roll. We have a cement cylinder. You got to roll it. I don't know, again, probably 10 yards, maybe 15. But the ground is lava. You can't touch the ground. If you do, you start over. At this point, Grant from Australia then takes the lead. Troy, who says that, people underestimate him for his size, also from Australia. But he's very agile. He's now in second place, and Ben is now in third. Fourth checkpoint is Wait for It. This is an interesting one that I've never seen before, or any kind of variation of it that I can remember. There are cylinders of different weights, and you have to just kind of, based on feel, put them in order from lightest to heaviest. Once you think they're correct, they all have a letter on them, and then you have to go over to the corresponding letters to solve some sort of a puzzle, which that was a little confusing to me. But everyone else seemed to get it just fine, except for poor Tristan from the UK, who I liked a whole bunch on his season. But he just couldn't seem to figure that one out, unfortunately. Then checkpoint 5, plant your flag. It's a weighted flag. I heard someone say that this was also based on the weight of the contestant, and you could roll it, pull it, push it, whatever you had to do to get it transferred, and then put on the flag pole so it's upright, and then run to the finish line. So that's the challenge. I thought this was a really good starting point. I loved that the challenge greats got to watch this and kind of size up the competitors. This had several different skills involved. Obviously, there was the eating, the strength, the agility, puzzle, all there, speed to a certain extent. One thing that I did really enjoy was one of my favorite things on Challenge USA. Danny, who just endeared me the whole season on Challenge USA, would always mention his wife, Kiki. And I was hoping and praying that he would continue to do what he did last season in mentioning her. Well, he sure did. About 25 minutes in, Danny mentioned Kiki because there's a contestant on the show named Kiki. And I'm here for it. I'm here for him talking about Kiki. I love their love. I love their marriage. You always just keep mentioning that beautiful Kiki McRae, and I'm here for it. First through fourth place for the men were Grant, Ben, Nathan, and Danny. For the women were Zara, Kaz, Justine, and Kiki. And then Tristan and Claudia both timed out, so they were going to go into an elimination for sure. And then the winners, Grant and Zara, would be. Oh, wait. Then the house would vote on 2 men, 2 women to go in. And then the winners are going to then decide amongst those men and women who's going to go in to the arena, the elimination, whatever it is they're calling it this season. We get into the house, and let's run down who's here because I didn't really quite say everybody's name. Of our challenge greats, we have John A., Jody, Kellyanne, Naya, Tori, Amber, Casey, Bananas, Wes, Jordan, yes, Theo, which I was so surprised to see Theo back. I remember hearing that he was going to be on the show, and I didn't know in what capacity because I didn't really know what the rules were going to be going into it. Thought maybe he'd be part of the UK group. Theo has been on maybe 2 or 3 seasons of the show. Always a great competitor. Remember, he'd been paired up with Cara Maria, track star, very strong athlete, but he had an eye injury, and that had prevented him from being on the show. He kept medically getting told no until this point. So he's healed enough to go to be on the show. He does have some half blindness in one eye, which I'm sure that's going to present some challenges for him. Especially with things having to do with depth. So I'm curious to see how he has acclimated with that. Happy to see him back. Love to see him back. I know he's gotten into some Twitter beefs with people like Amanda. He also, it says, they had mentioned that him and Kaz had been together. So that might come up. Bananas even mentioned that he wanted them to get back together. So that could add some intrigue. So very curious about that. We also have my boy Nelly. Love Nelly T. Darrell. And that's our challenge greats. Then from Challenge USA, we have Sarah, Ben, Justine, and Danny. From the UK, we have Kaz, Tristan, Zara, and Nathan. From Australia, Kiki, Troy, Emily. Remember, she is a Olympic swimmer. And Grant. And then Argentina, Claudia. Oh, I'm probably gonna mess up a couple of these names. I've been working on them in my head all day, but I'm probably gonna mess them up, and I apologize. So Claudia, I think it's Huhui, Rodrigo, and it's Benhi. Those 4. Benhi has beautiful eyes, very attractive. I want to say young man, but he's probably in his 30s. So those are the contestants that are there at this point. Just went through how the challenge went. We know that Tristan and Claudia are for sure going into elimination. We get into the house, typical challenge house, beautiful. There's a pool, all kinds of good stuff. Our man Bananas gives the toast as per usual. Nothing of consequence as far as a toast, just, welcoming everybody and things to that nature. Then we get into Wes talking about what his skills are, and production, of course, has to troll him for it, and I love it, where he's talking about his skills, and then they start fast forwarding through it, meaning that he's just talking about himself forever, ever. Which, sure, why not? But we remember he is the reigning champ from All Stars. He had a heck of a season, All Star Season 3. Nelly, we see being incredibly charismatic, chatting people up, just kind of getting vibes from the women because we know at this point that they are going to be in some way paired up with a challenge MVP. So the greats and then the MVPs are going to be paired up, similar to the champs or the fresh meat and challengers. UK at this point then start strategizing. I could not believe how fast the strategizing was happening. I mean, it wasn't even like, let's enjoy the night. Nope. We're strategizing right away. But that's what you got to do. They decide to go after Argentina. That's the best way to do it. Get Argentina out. And so that appears to be the plan that the House is going to take. UK women are talking to the USA legends in regards to which male champions are decent partners. Who would you want to be paired up with? Who's good people? What are their strengths? Things like that. Then we see a really sweet conversation between Naya and Danny. Naya is talking about how she loves Danny's love for his wife Kiki and how they like celebrate big and all that. And Danny's just saying, you know, like I just love my wife and she loves this show. And, you know, she says, if I get the call, I go, and I'm absolutely here to do that. And I'm here to win. And it was a very nice, endearing conversation. Also, if you get a chance, follow Naya on social media if you have not already. So she is a flight attendant for like very VIP, like private jet kind of situation, I think. And if you don't already know this as a challenge fan, she gets to go to the coolest places. She posts the most amazing vacation spots and like 5-star cuisine. Oh, amazing. She lives a fabulous life, of which she's grateful for. It's not like ostentatious or in your face. It's a hard working woman, and yeah, she's a really good social media follow. So follow her. We do then see that Emily and Sarah are working together, which to me, it tracks. It makes sense to me. They even kind of like look alike, almost like they could be cousins to me. I don't know how or why, but that's just the vibe I was getting. And their personalities are kind of similar. But the way that this conversation is going, and Emily is talking in the interview, I feel like, I don't think that I think you think that you can trust Sarah, but you absolutely cannot trust Sarah. So next morning, we do have Bananas playing the guitar by the pool for all the honeys. I've spoken before about how I feel about when he brings out his guitar. And I fully get it. I'd probably be super into it if I was there too. They don't have music. They don't have TV. What are you going to do to occupy your time? Here's this dude that knows how to play a guitar. Sure, cool. Let's sit around and sing some Jack Johnson or something. But it always just makes me chuckle when I see that he has it out. So have to mention it just because it gives me a little laugh every time. There's a cute moment with Justine and Rodrigo. He's teaching her how to salsa and merengue. I just liked this interaction with her and the people from Argentina because at this point we are seeing a divide in the house where it seems like a lot of people aren't really talking to the people from Argentina. And so to see her talking to them, I enjoyed. But Rodrigo does say, he's like, yeah, she's nice, but I only trust Argentina at this point. Kiki and Bananas are talking, and she says again, the plan is let's get Argentina out. And this is where things then shift. So after Bananas and Kiki are talking, then we see Sarah speaking with a couple other people. And she says, all right, we need to start working on the UK because the UK is a stronger team. And we should start trying to get them out, starting with Emily. Right? Because Emily is UK. Yes, she's the swimmer who thinks she's friends with Sarah and working with her, but not so much. We go into nominations, and they instantly take the winners, who are Grant and Zara, into the Hall of Fame room, which when they mentioned the Hall of Fame room, I was very excited. I'm like, what is this Hall of Fame room? This is going to be really neat. It was just a room. There's also a small screen, a very, very small screen that tells them the names, typed up names of who gets nominated. No animation or anything. while they're in the Hall of Fame room, everybody else is in wherever their deliberation room is, discussing who they're going to vote in. At this point, TJ tells us that Nathan was medically separated from the game. So now Tristan, it's his lucky day. He's safe. He doesn't have to go into elimination. So that is great news for Tristan. But unfortunately, Claudia still is going to have to go in. So now we're only looking at voting for 2 females. Once those 2 females are voted on, it will be up to the winners to decide who of those 2 is going to be going in against Claudia. Someone had heard from Claudia that she wanted Kaz because they're similar size. And so they decide to vote Kiki and Kaz because they think that, like, no matter what, Kiki is going to be fine. And a lot of the house is very curious how to see if a stalemate will go. Meaning, Grant will not vote Kiki because he's from Australia. And I keep forgetting her name. Zara will not vote Kaz because she's from the UK. And normally on the show, when there is a stalemate and the winners have to vote on, one of the 2 people to go in, TJ always says, are you sure you want it to be a tie? And if someone doesn't change their vote, it's going to mean X. Usually X is you have to go in, as we saw that happen with Zach and Amanda before. And I think we've seen it a couple other times, but that's the one that's sticking out in my head. So at this point, when they're doing their voting, Zara's like, I'm prepared to go in. I'm not going to change my vote. I'm not going to vote for Kiki. I'm not going to vote for Kaz. I'm prepared to go into elimination. TJ then tells us that because it's a women's elimination day, the woman, Zara, is the tiebreaker, which means Kiki's going to go into the elimination. And at this point, me as a viewer, I'm sweating it because I am a big Kiki fan. Kiki won me over lots of times in watching Challenge Australia, but specifically when in the final, when she was riding the spin bike and her underwear was riding up and she just asked production for scissors so she could cut herself out of it while still on the spin bike. That was a classic moment. Love it. Instant classic. Kiki, you've been my girl ever since. She's very likable. And she's tough. And I didn't want her to go into the elimination, at least not this early. So now it's Kiki and Claudia going in, and we find out it's pole wrestle. Claudia looks to be a little bit more muscular, so that was concerning to me as well. Kiki then says to the cameras, I'm not really like a contact person, so I'm kind of freaking out. And at this point, I'm like, Kiki's going home. That's just what's going to happen. You need to win. You need 3 points to win. You gotta get the pole from your partner or from your opponent 3 times. Both women are extremely scrappy, really going for it. The first point, Sarah and Danny both mentioned that Kiki's kind of playing dirty, like elbowing Claudia in the face. Danny then does say in his interview, he's like, you gotta, in this kind of game, you gotta kind of play dirty. You gotta fight dirty. That's just what you have to do. And Kiki gets the first point. I'm like, okay, maybe this is going to happen. Second point, in an unprecedented moment, Kiki uses her leg to kind of go into the splits to use the leg for leverage to get the pole away from Claudia. Gets the second point. And then the third point at that point is pretty quick and easy. So Kiki wins. She's staying there. Nelly calls her Barbie Beast, which I love. That's something that we've heard from, or when mentioned, Jenna originally. We've heard it now from, or in mention of Olivia, and now Kiki. So we got 3 challenge Barbie Beasts, and I'm here for it. Claudia was a really good sport. All smiles, just very humble, very sweet, and called Kiki a lion as a compliment. Love it. Episode ends with TJ telling us, all right, now it is time to pick your partner. And the MVPs are going to pick from the challenge legends as a partner, and you will be picking in the order that you placed. So it's like a kickball game out on the playground or PE class back in the day. So since Grant finished first, he gets pick of the litter, and he picks John A. Excellent pick. Zara picks Wes, which excellent pick as well. You hear Sarah whispering in the background that Johnny looks like he's sad that he wasn't picked, like it was like an ego blow, which I think absolutely that would probably be the winningest contestant there. Not being the first pick would be a blow to your ego for sure. But I also think people don't want to maybe pair up with Bananas because it could put a target on your back. And you have to look at what strengths work best for yourself versus like what skills do you have? What skills are you lacking? What skills does this person have that maybe you're lacking that you guys can kind of marry together to fill each other's weaknesses. And then just personality. Ben picks Casey, and I think that this is going to be a really good team. A lot of people always have lots to say about Casey, but Casey is a champion, and she has a lot of good skills. And Ben, I really am rooting for, and I think these two are going to have the ability to kind of stay under the radar and do well. Kaz then picks Jordan. So now that's two people who have not picked Bananas. Danny picks Tori. Sounds like a great team. Oh, and while they're putting the teams together, they're animating it in for us, and they're putting together what they think their strength as a team is going to be. So I think for Ben and Casey, they put social game. For Tori and Danny, they put strength. And later, when we get to Nelly, I'm gonna circle back to that. Justine then picks Bananas. Justine, who I just found out she played D2 soccer. Knew she was an athlete in some capacity, but that makes sense, and she ran track. Ben High picks Jody. Jody is very apprehensive about this because she knows that Argentina is a target, and she doesn't want to be picked off right away. She also knows that she's been a little bit removed from the game aside from All-Star Season 2, and so she doesn't have the bonds in the house. So that's kind of like a double whammy. But we'll see what happens with that. Kiki picks Darrell, and I love this partnership. This is going to be great. And Darrell is just such an encouraging partner. It's going to be lovely. It's going to be absolutely lovely. Rodrigo picks Naya. He says we've got the language barrier, but I think it's going to be okay. Emily picks Yes, which I think Yes can work with anybody. Troy and Amber. That's a very agile and flexible team with endurance. Sarah and Theo. Then there's... I'm so sorry. I'm going to get her name wrong again. I think it's Huhui and Nelly. And it says that their expertise is heart. Nelly has so much heart. So much heart. He won't give up. But I almost felt like that was like a little bit of like a low-key burn. Like sometimes people say like, oh, but they've got heart. Nelly also was very strong. He's really quick. Obviously we all know puzzles aren't his strength as we see later, but expertise, heart. It's a little, I feel like we could have put something a little better there, production. And then last pick, Tristan doesn't have a choice. He picks Kellyanne. Kellyanne's a little hurt by this. She's worried about puzzles, as we also see later. Then there's an intro, which we have not seen an intro that, like has the partners and has the music and, the teams in years. So this was kind of fun. It was very throwback. I enjoyed it. I appreciated that it wasn't like the overly cheesy, like I don't remember which one it was, but back like when they had them like chanting and stuff and doing just strange things. So it didn't completely jump the shark to that, but I liked the intro where we got to see everybody. I also like that there's a button where you can skip the intro if you're not super into it. Then we have just different people visiting and talking throughout the house. Casey and John A are talking, about relationships they have in the house. Casey asks her about, like you have the bond with all the people you've done All-Stars with. John A mentions that there's some weird vibes with Kellyanne. They're friends, but she's just getting weird vibes from her, which we all know because they do a lot of foreshadowing in the show that that's going to mean something later. Bananas mentions to Justine that he takes a little while to warm up to people. He's used to these shows where new people come in and they're after him, blah, blah, blah. So I thought that was interesting. Kind of, one, like being honest, like, hey, like it takes me a while to warm up to people. But two, kind of showing like a softer side of him, which I appreciate. Then we have Wes giving Zara rules and tips. She's taking notes in a little notebook. She's like, I don't like studying, but I'm going to study really hard for this $500,000. And some of the tips I hear him say is don't worry about other people's workouts. The one thing I want you to worry about is practicing distance running. I think that's a pretty good tip. I mean, if Wes gives you tips about how to do well in the challenge, you take those tips. You say thank you. So now it's challenge day. They're going into the desert. It's called Chain Game. They got to run up a dune to a shipwreck. Chains then have a color that are corresponding to a puzzle. The chains are 700 pounds each, and you're going to use the chain to complete the puzzle. The more difficult puzzles are closer, meaning you don't have to move the chains as far. And the easier ones are farther. So if you're consider yourself a stronger person who maybe isn't that good at puzzles, maybe you do the farther away one because in the long run, that's what your strength is. And then vice versa. Then you got to put the chain back and it's a race. This looks extremely grueling. Just even running up the sand dune looks like it sucked. But, I mean, these people are competing for $500,000, so I get it. I also was very concerned immediately about sunburns. Right away, it looked like people were already starting to get sunburned with that white sand. I'm looking at, like, poor Gingy Bear Wes, and I was very concerned about people getting sunburned. So I hope they were wearing their sunscreen. I guess we'll find out in the next episode how burnt people did get. These are the things I think about when I watch the show. Also, I do have to say, since we're talking about weird things I think about when I watch the show, I was not feeling TJ's outfit. He had, he looked kind of like an Adam Sandler kind of outfit, just not quite as sloppy. No offense to Adam Sandler. It was like a black or dark blue backwards hat. I'm not mad at that. Then a white like cargo, and then a red vest that just didn't make sense over it. Almost like they put the vest on him just randomly. I don't know. I'm not into that outfit. I like MTV seems to dress you a little better. Moving on. This looks grueling, and it was also kind of hard to tell who was winning for quite a portion of the challenge, just because everybody was so quote unquote even looking. Saw lots of good communication, but then you do start to see some communication fail. Kellyanne and Tristan, they're getting frustrated. Saw lots of hustle. Then you see Nellie and his partner struggling as well. Kellyanne and Tristan do finally end up getting it, meaning Nellie and his partner then are going to go immediately into elimination. Following this, before Deliberation, we got Jody and Wes talking. They've known each other for years. Jody wants to encourage getting Kellyanne to go in. Oh, and John A. and Grant win, which is not a surprise. Jordan and Kaz are second. It was very close there at the end. And Grant told John A. she was a super mom, which I really like that. That's awesome. Kellyanne then, in a conversation with Tori and a couple other people in a bedroom, just puts her foot in her mouth. God bless her. She's nervous because she knows her and Tristan didn't do very well, so there's potential for them to be voted in. And she says, we should go for the U.S. because they're strong. And Tori's in the room, and she's like, well, I'm part of U.S. And then word gets to Johnny, and he's part of Team U.S. And word gets to Sarah, she's part of U.S. So it's just like, oh, that just, you might have really stepped in it there. Deliberation starts. So we're voting on the two bottom teams. The teams that ended up getting voted in are Johnny and Tristan, Jody and Benha, which Jody and Benha weren't even like the bottom team, but Yes had originally just said like, I'm voting the two bottom teams in, and said those two. And a lot of people just kind of piled on, went with it. And that's a typical strategy in the game. Once somebody else says a name, you just go with it, especially early in the game, because you don't want to put a target on your back. But Jordan does burn a vote on Wes, and Johnny has to call out that, that's a burn vote, to his partner, because I thought that was cute. And then another thing of consequence that came up was, Wes and Kellyanne had dated a million years ago, but it was a long-term relationship. And we saw in All-Stars that they had respect for each other. And he voted for Kellyanne. And then Bananas has to tease him later about it. It's Bananas and Theo and Wes in a room. Bananas says to Theo, he voted his ex, and then Theo's like, yeah, he's a scumbag. Yeah, it's pretty funny. I enjoyed that. Strange conversation between Kellyanne and John A. Kellyanne's doing her makeup, and she says to John A., I hope you don't vote me in tomorrow. And John A. just very nicely, very diplomatically says, like, well, I don't know what I'm doing, but I do know that I care about you. And Kellyanne just kind of continues like, well, I know you're my friend and I wouldn't vote you in. And it just starts to get a little strange. And at this point, I think, okay, well, let's see what happens. And the episode ends. So they got us on a cliffhanger. Got me wanting more, which, if Jay were here, he would say that's exactly what we want, because, on last season, on Challenge Proper season 38, we had 90-minute episodes, and there were a lot of them. And they seemed to go on and on. We didn't necessarily want more. This had me wanting more. So great job, production, on that. Now, I do have categories to go over, as I always do. Take a sip of my water. All right. So typically we go over who won and lost the episode. Kellyanne, it's looking like you right now, because you're potentially just making a big political mistake. So I love you, Kellyanne. I love what you do for rescuing dogs. Like you as a person, just made a little bit of a mistake here that I hope doesn't blow up. I hope this doesn't blow up. I think the easy decision for next week would be, production, make it look like this is going to be a huge thing. And then they don't. Then they just vote in Jody and Ben High, because that would make the most sense. Realistically, that's probably what's going to happen. But I guess we'll have to stay tuned on that. So, but for now, I'll say Kellyanne did lose the episode and won the episode. And I'm lumping episode 1 and 2 together. I could go with Grant because he won 2 challenges. He won the first 2 challenges. Or I could go with my girl Kiki just because I really enjoy her and want to see more of her. So I'll give it to both of them. Grant and Kiki, you won episode 1 and 2. Good job. Can't wait to see what happens as the game progresses. Cringeworthy moment. Actually haven't really thought about this one. I mean, Ben's South Park puke was a really good one. It could definitely be it. There was a strange moment where Bananas was encouraging Justine and they had the chains and she's carrying a chain and you see that he's just kind of like gently like tapping some sand. I thought that was kind of weird because I'm like, well, what are you doing there, bro? There had to have been something he was doing. I don't think she was the only one doing something, but just at that moment, he's telling her what to do, and he's just kind of, nah. So that made me cringe a little bit. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Ben's South Park puke for the cringeworthy moment of the night. Predictions, I will wait until Jay is back to make predictions. Those will be things like who we think is gonna win, any drama that we think is going to happen, any hookups that we think are going to happen, if anybody's going to quit, that kind of stuff. So we'll talk about that next week. And I think that's about it to wrap up episodes 1 and 2 of Challenge World Championship. I do have one little bit of tea, tiny little bit of tea, but it is great news. So Bear, as we know, there was the court case between him and Georgia. He was found guilty of essentially revenge porn, recording her without consent, and he was found guilty. But then there was quite a bit of time before sentencing, and sentencing got pushed back for them to do a psych evaluation, and they did come back with a sentence of 21 months in jail, which I will call that a win. It seems in these kind of cases, a lot of times it's a slap on the wrist or probation or something to that nature. So I'm happy that he is going to serve time. I am very happy that Georgia gets to kind of end this chapter. And I'm happy to close the book on Bear as far as talking about him for the challenge, because we're not going to see him again. And I am so done with him. So that is great news. I think that's it for this week. Follow us on Twitter, Fine Alliance 1, on Instagram, Fine Alliance, on YouTube, here at Fine Alliance Podcast. Please comment, subscribe. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, Fine Alliance Podcast. Thanks for watching.